What's up guys, Justin here of Yugatech, and this is the Motorola Edge 20 Fusion 5G. It's the brand's latest mid-ranger offering with an 8-bit 90Hz OLED display, a MediaTek Dimensity 800U processor, and a 108-megapixel main rear camera. Within the Motorola Edge 20 series, this one shares a few more similarities with the Lite version, even with the design, but this is an even more toned-down variant. Despite that, as we've been using this for quite some time now, we think it's worth checking out. So continue watching for our full review. Before we get into it, let's see what's in the box first. Upon opening it up, we get the phone right away with the jelly case attached to it already. Let's put that aside first. And then we get this smaller box that includes the paperwork. Underneath, we get this black PD adapter, the USB Type-C cable, some regular earphones, and the SIM ejector tool. And that's all of it. Now talk about design, this Motorola Edge 20 Fusion feels and looks like it has a robust build. It's quite chunky though due to its large battery capacity, but it's not as heavy as it looks. The body is entirely made of plastic, yet it doesn't feel cheap at all. Its matte finish at the back is a nice touch, making it a little less prone to smudges. Just less. Here at the back, you'll find the iconic M logo sitting in the middle, while on the upper left is its triple rear camera setup along with an LED flash in a square protruding module. The camera bump is quite thick, so we suggest slapping a case on to avoid accidental scratches on the lenses. Now we're glad to say that for its range, the Motorola Edge 20 Fusion is IP52 dust and water resistant, so a few water splashes shouldn't be a problem. By the way, it's available in two colors. There's Cyber Teal and Electric Graphite, which is the one we have. For buttons and ports, found on the right are the volume rocker and the power button that also doubles as a fingerprint scanner. Meanwhile, on the left is a dedicated Google Assistant button along with a card tray for 2 nanosite SIM cards and a micro SD card in a hybrid setup. On top, we have the secondary microphone, then at the bottom are the 3.5mm audio jack, USB-C port, main microphone, and loudspeaker. Flipping up front, we get an 8-bit 6.7-inch Full HD Plus 90Hz OLED display with sizable bezels and a punch hole notch on the upper middle. Then right above that is the earpiece. Well, the front camera notch doesn't really bother us, but by default, whenever you launch an app, a black bar will cover the top area unless you allow it to fill the full screen in the settings. If you like to watch movies or binge watch your favorite Netflix series on your smartphone, then the Motorola Edge 20 Fusion's OLED display will really impress you. It's HDR10 certified, has good viewing angles, colors look punchy, and we get inky blacks. Its system-wide dark mode gives a satisfying experience that reminds me of using a Pixel phone. And since we get an option for a 90Hz refresh rate, scrolling through the UI is definitely a smooth experience. However, do note that this display is highly prone to fingerprint smudges. Audio-wise, sound only comes out through its down-firing loudspeaker, and it can get loud enough for a medium-sized room. The quality isn't really impressive, but it's not the worst either. There's quite a balance of highs and mids, but like most mid-rangers, it's lacking on bass. We still suggest taking advantage of the headphone port for better sound quality. As for software, the Edge 20 Fusion runs on good old stock Android 11 with a few Motorola personalization features, making this one of its biggest key takeaways. You can expect a straightforward Google-centric interface with the brand's Moto app that allows you to tweak the shortcut gestures, icon style, audio effects, and wallpapers with actually not bad designs. And there's even interactive wallpapers available. There are some notable features here that you might find useful, such as game time, which is like game mode. Then there's attentive display that prevents the screen from going to sleep while you're looking at it. And there's also peak display that gives quick access to interactive notifications while your screen is locked. All of the settings can be accessed through the general settings menu like what we're used to, and of course, pre-installed apps are kept to a minimum. Out of the 128GB of storage that we get, we're left with 108GB of usable space right out of the box. And if it's still not enough for you, you can expand it up to 512GB via the microSD card slot. Talk about performance. Powering the Edge 20 Fusion is a MediaTek Dimensity 800U 5G processor with 6 or 8GB of RAM and 128GB of internal storage. The experience is very good as it can handle all the basic tasks we throw at it like web browsing, video streaming, and social media scrolling. It's pretty smooth and responsive thanks also to its 90Hz refresh rate, which you can manually set to 60Hz if you want to save more battery life. so its gaming performance is nothing over the top, but it's still very playable. We were able to play heavy games such as Asphalt 9 and Genshin Impact, but it's best to lower the settings for a more seamless gameplay. Do take note that the phone warms up quite a bit during heavy usage, but thankfully it never reaches a point where it's uncomfortable. Like usual, we ran it through our standard benchmark apps, and here are the results we got. For security, there's the side-mounted fingerprint sensor that's embedded in the frame, and it reliably works well alongside the face unlock. This lock button even has a quirky feature called Power Touch that you can turn on in the settings. Basically, this will just allow you to double tap on the power button to trigger your quick app shortcuts. Quickly on connectivity, it has support for 4G LTE, 5G, GPS, Bluetooth 5.0, Wi-Fi 6, NFC, OTG, and there's a pre-installed FM radio app. Now, one of the things that we liked about this phone is its long-lasting battery. We have a 5,000 mAh capacity, which might seem average today, but its display and internals are thankfully not much high-consuming. When we ran it through the PCMark Work 3.0 battery test under 90Hz refresh rate, the device yielded 16 hours and 6 minutes. Meanwhile, in our standard video loop test, which involves playing a 1080p clip on loop under 60Hz refresh rate, 50% brightness and volume, wired headset plugged in and airplane mode turned on, we got a very good 24 hours and 1 minute. Charging, on the other hand, takes about an hour and a half from 0 to 100% with its 30 watts fast charger. Okay, moving on to cameras, the Moto Edge 20 Fusion has impressive looking specs on paper. Its triple rear camera setup is composed of a 108-megapixel main, an 8-megapixel ultra-wide that's also the macro vision lens, and a 2-megapixel depth sensor. Then up front is a 32-megapixel selfie camera. By default, its standard mode uses the main 108-megapixel lens to produce 12-megapixel shots. And looking at some sample photos, they're fairly decent. Under good lighting conditions, we often get sharp and vibrant photos with acceptable dynamic range. However, it is rather disappointing to see that it is inconsistent when it comes to color reproduction and saturation. Sometimes it excessively processes the colors green and blue. Although we don't always get muddy or shaky photos, we still suggest taking multiple shots and tapping to focus to get better outputs. Since we get a high 108-megapixel lens, you can take ultra-quality shots but with still the same picture quality as in standard mode. You can turn this on in the settings, by the way. Meanwhile, the ultra-wide lens is deliverable and can still be very useful, but it does have tendencies to look shadowy and with a fisheye look. Macro photography, on the other hand, impressed us. It's easy to focus when taking a shot and the details on the subjects are on point. Meanwhile, the portrait mode is also flexible to use as it allows you to adjust the blur before taking a photo. And we appreciate how the effect looks clean in separating the subject from the background. As for night photography, photos come out soft and a bit muddy when you're not using the night mode feature. But with the night mode on, it will slightly enhance the sharpness and shadows. Switching to selfies, it can be a hit or miss. The skin tones can be a little bit too dark and sometimes photos can come out noisy even in well-lit conditions. Hopefully, the brand can fix this with an update. For videos, you can shoot up to 4K at 30 frames per second, but if you want to use its stabilization, you can toggle it down to 1080p at 60 frames per second. There are other camera features on board that you can play around, including Pro, Macro Video, Spot Color, Panorama, Cinematograph, Live Filter, Time-Lapse, and Dual Capture. Alright, finally, let's talk about the price. This Moto Edge 20 Fusion has an SRP of 16,995 pesos, making it really competitive, especially against the OnePlus Nord CE if you're into that stock Android-like experience. Overall, this phone got almost all the basics right, except for the cameras where a few aspects can still be a lot improved on. But besides that, this is surprisingly a bang-for-your-buck mid-tier smartphone from Motorola. You get that stunning OLED display, water-resistant body, deliverable performance, 5G connectivity, long-lasting battery life, and not to forget its stock Android offering. A thumbs up on this one. And that's it for this review, guys. Share with us what you think about this Motorola Edge 20 Fusion in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like, subscribe to our channel for more content, hit that bell icon so you don't miss any future uploads, and be sure to visit yugatech.com for the latest tech news and reviews. Once again, this is Justin, and don't forget to wash your hands and stay at home.